what's going on, guys? Bflattened here with a brand new video. Today we're going to be talking about ShellShock Sorcerer. This is the ball lightning sorcerer for all of your delete bosses needs. There are two different variations on how to build this, so I'm going to go ahead and show you what I like to do for both mobbing and also bossing. So for mobbing gear wise, we'll start with that. I like using the Oculus. The Oculus gives you a flat damage rate. It gives you evade charges. The evade cooldown doesn't really matter that much, but it also gives you some teleport. Now, there's one negative about the Oculus, is that when you're in a dungeon, it teleports you randomly throughout the map. And that's really not that good because it could teleport you literally anywhere. However, there is a bug with it where if you combine it with a certain vampire power, the Oculus will give you all the positives and none of the negatives. The negatives being that it teleports you somewhere. So without the Oculus, or sorry, without the vampire power, the Oculus would send me everywhere. However, if you combine it with Metamorphosis, Metamorphosis will turn you into a vampire bat and give you Unstoppable, which is actually really good for the build as well, because Unstoppable with Flame Shield on Sorc is just a great rotation to have. As well, you also have 4 evade charges for it because of the Oculus giving you either 2 or 3 evade charges. So instead, you'll just turn into a Vampire Bat, and you'll be able to zoom along and be able to get in and out of combat as you need. I'm honestly not sure if it's a bug, an exploit, or if it's actually working as intended, but the Oculus was really bad before because of that, but now it's really good because of Metamorphosis. You get Metamorphosis off of beating the vampire storyline. You actually want to keep it at a level 1 because you want to be able to gain as much mana back as possible. If you have it leveled up, it actually consumes more. Things like the Tibial's Will that combine with it, you deal 36% increased damage while unstoppable and 4 seconds after. When you become unstoppable, you gain 50 of your primary resource. So there's a couple of different ways that you can become unstoppable. We combine that with our Flame Shield. Our Flame Shield gives us Unstoppable, and then we also have 4 evade charges, which gives us Unstoppable every single evade charge. So that's 5 sources of Unstoppable, and we get 50 of our primary resource when we become Unstoppable. You have to be able to rotate it on that 4 seconds properly, but if you can time that well, or if you just happen to use a Unstoppable afterwards, you just gain 50 of your primary resource back. Let me show you how that looks now. So I'm going to drain all of my resource here. We become unstoppable, and then look at that. With 1 flame shield, I'm already back up to maximum mana, and I'm able to just go right back in. Because I also have a Prodigy ring here. The imprint, when using a cooldown, you restore 22 of your mana. So if I become unstoppable, I get 50 of my mana. If I use any cooldown, so every thing on my bar, I get an additional 22 mana for that. So again, drain all of your mana out, Flame Shield back up to maximum, any cooldown, look at that, we just get 22 again, use any cooldown, get it again, use our alt, more, and then we can just keep on rotating between having, usually it's anywhere between 8 to 10 ball lightnings that follow you around with the gravitational aspect from our gloves. I like having attack speed on it because we can spawn more lightning balls more often. The critical strike chance on most rolls are also really good because you want to be able to have all that potential to crit with every single individual ball. I like using Rymans of the Infinite. It lets you zoom in and out of enemies and also stun them. Because we're going to be doing damage to close enemies anyways, we might as well zoom in and stun all the enemies that are close by. We have the balls rotate around us so that we can clean them off very quickly. Godslayer Crown, when you stun, freeze, or immobilize an elite or damage a boss, it pulls in nearby enemies and you deal increased damage to them. So every time we zoom in on an elite or a boss, we just pull every enemy into us, kind of like another Ryman effect. And because we're going to be having 8 to 10 balls following around us, all we have to do is hit a boss or an elite, and we can clear a room with just this thing by itself. Flicker steps, there's a good and bad thing about the flicker steps. The good thing is that they're insane if you use them with the dagger. The bad thing is that if you use it with the Oculus, it actually doesn't work for the cooling down your ultimate cooldown. So you can swap these out for boots that give you either mana cost reduction, intelligence, movement speed, things like that, if you want to go with that version of the build. I don't mind having them because it also gives me passive movement speed and also damage reduction from close enemies. Those are two really good passives for me, so I don't mind using them and taking a little bit of a hit on the ultimate cooldown. Focus, critical strike chance, mana cost reduction, resource gen, and cooldown reduction. Whenever we have a barrier, we gain increased damage. So barrier will come from every single time that we become unstoppable, which, as I've shown you already, we have 5 different sources of becoming unstoppable, so we're always going to have that up. Flame Shield is amazing for it because Flame Shield is going to give us that barrier every single time that we activate it, and it has a very low cooldown too. I don't have a perfect amulet, unfortunately, but if you can have it roll with mana cost reduction and ranks of all mastery, you're already set for life. Having it have movement speed is also really nice, but another role that you could look for is resource generation, also very solid for it. Tal Rasha's Iridescent Loop is just absolutely insane. It just came out recently. Non-physical damage, you get some pretty good passives there. Lucky hit chance doesn't really matter that much. Resource and cooldown reduction, huge. And then for the elemental damage, you get increased damage for that. And as I showed you earlier, we're using a Prodigy ring. There's a lot of different things that you can do with rings. You can do crit strike chance, you can do damage to close, max life, resource gen. Those are my preferred, but there are other roles that you can go with as well if you'd prefer. I like having the damage to close enemies on a lot of different things. Now, the second part of the build, as I was mentioning earlier, uses a dagger. Dagger will give you critical strike damage passively for being a dagger. You can have intelligence roll on it, critical strike damage, mastery skill damage, which is ball lightning, and damage to close enemies. You deal 34% increased damage to immobilized, stunned, or frozen. That's the control aspect. And it also combines with the Godslayer crown, so you can do a shit ton of damage off that too. Ugh. All right, so now that we got through our skills here, or sorry, our gear here. The vampire powers that I like to use, infection is pretty decent. Hitting enemies with direct damage, which is any form of damage that we do, including our vampire bats. We hit them with poison damage, which is an element. Anticipation, your ultimate skill cooldown, you get faster currents, unstable currents. Metamorphosis, I've talked about that already. Domination, you deal increased damage to enemies who are stunned, immobilized, or frozen. So immobilized or stunned, it's a CC. It combines with the Godslayer crown and also the dagger. And Ravenous, up to 20% chance for your attack speed of your total movement speed. So this is why movement speed rolls are actually really important. If you can get them on your amulet, or if you swap out your flicker steps for boots, movement speed are really nice. You can spawn your lightning balls a lot faster, so it's actually really good. Level all of them up to 3. I haven't done that yet, except for Metamorphosis. Just make sure that Metamorphosis is level 1. Takes 7 crown, 3 chalices, and 2 skulls. Let's go ahead and move on over to our abilities. So I'm using Firebolt. Firebolt is literally just there to move down the tree, and I also use it as an enchantment. The enchantment for Firebolt gives you burning damage to direct damage. So if you direct damage an enemy, Firebolt deals burning damage to them. It's just there for the element. For Tal Rasha's ring. If you don't use Tal Rasha's ring, you can actually use Arc Lash. It's actually pretty good. It's absolutely insane to be able to do that AoE. We use Chain Lightning. Chain Lightning is just there for the enchantment again. It automatically happens if you spend 100 mana. So because we're spamming chain or ball lightning around us all the time and being able to restore our mana instantly, we can get all that mana back really, really fast so that we can be able to spam chain lightning for free. Devastation for max mana and core mastery skills for elemental dominance. It's very good. Flame shield, movement speed, and heals you. It's pretty standard for sorcerers. Teleport, we have 17 out of 5 because of our Oculus. Normally you just want to max this out. And you get 30% damage reduction when you teleport, which is great. Ice armor. Ice armor is there for barrier. Barrier is always good. Critical strikes have a chance to reset your defensive skills. So our defensive skills are flame shield, ice armor, and teleport, so we can cool those down a little bit more. Flame shield for barrier, we need that cooldown. These are just really standard on pretty much every sorcerer. So align the elements, damage reduction against elites. Mana shield, every time you spend 100 mana you get 21% damage reduction. And protection, using a cooldown grants 30% of your maximum life as a barrier. So using a cooldown, barrier. Ice blades, that's just there for the element. It just has it follow us and it hits enemies for chill damage. Blizzard, that's just from... I don't have that equipped. That's from some of my gear. Meteor, same thing. Firewall, same thing. Ball lightning, want to max it out, of course. Static discharge. Critical strikes with shock skills have a 5% chance to form a crackling energy, which is something that we have to pick up after we do ball lightning. Upon absorbing crackling energy, you gain 12 mana. So if we run into crackling energy when we drop it on the ground, we just gain mana, including if you teleport into it as well. Coursing currents, we have 1 in there. It gives us critical strike chance. And critical strikes with shock skills gives us movement speed. Remember, movement speed works with one of our vampire powers, and also it combines with attack speed, so it allows us to spawn more lightning bolts faster. Crackling energy hits 1 additional enemy. Each time crackling energy hits an enemy, your shock skill cooldown are reduced by 0.1, increase to 0.25 seconds against elites. Very good. Paragon, there's not really a lot to say about Paragon, honestly, besides just some of the main things to go over. Elementalist, it's huge. You get elemental damage. It's pretty much like a Talrash's ring as a glyph. Dealing fire, cold, or lightning damage to all enemies increases your damage that you deal to them, so it just instantly gets deleted. Charged, it's pretty nice. It's crackling energy, it works directly with ball lightning. Reinforced, so this one's huge. You gain 15% damage reduction while you have an active barrier. We get barriers all the time, so that's a good one. Territorial, you gain 15% damage reduction against close enemies. Again, we're zooming into enemies and we're always close to them. It's a no-brainer there. Destruction, critical strike increases damage to the enemies, takes from you by 2% for 10 seconds up to 12. That was a tongue twister for some reason. Solid one with dexterity. It's very good. Adept, this is probably the main one. You want adept no matter what. You have 118% mastery skill damage, which is your ball lightning. For every 5 intelligence purchased within range, mastery skills gain 9.1% increased damage. Mine's only level 15, so it can still gain a little bit more damage, but also the additional bonus is necessary. Mastery skills have a 20% increased area, so area of effect, that teleport around you, so you can hit more enemies more often. An exploit, it's kind of decent. It's not really necessary, but dealing damage to a vulnerable enemy increases damage by 1%. It's literally just there to socket it, not really needed. It's static surge that is going to be more necessary than the exploit. I also took incapacitate, which is damage to stunned enemies and more intelligence. I don't have the dexterity for it, but if you have enough all stats or even dexterity rolls, doing another 15% damage to stunned enemies, it's pretty good. So let's Paragon. We have our skill tree talked about. We also talked about our gear itself, also the 2 different versions of the build. Let's go ahead and show you what a rotation would look like. It's very quick and easy. Before a boss, you just spam up your lightning balls as quickly as possible. Enemies kind of just run into them and they already die. I know this is not a nightmare dungeon or anything, but I have cleared a tier 100 with this already. As you saw at the beginning of the video, I can clear Lilith with it. That's just chain lightning zapping around. We use 1 flame shield, we can continue on, we just zoom around. With our evade, it gives us unstoppable. Nothing's going to be able to CC us with that either, which is great. Teleport in, all those enemies are dead. I got frozen because I wasn't unstoppable. Basically, when you're on higher tiers for dungeons, you want to be able to rotate between both your defensive skills as often as possible. So if you see a defensive skill, activate your defensive skill. If you cool down your defensive skills more, activate it anyways. You always want to have your defensive skills up and rotated around. It's major for being able to survive the higher tiers, especially things like elite or even poison element and things like that. Very, very good. There's a couple of things that you can do. Let me just get save first. There we go. There's a couple things that you can do. You can do critical strike damage on both the or critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies, my bad, to weapons. That's usually the primary. There's a couple things you can do in here. You can do maximum life rolls in your spots here so that you can be really, really tanky. It puts me up to a 13-2 with the HP roll of the Prodigy Ring as well. You can do armor in here, or you can also do 5% resist all, because if we look in our skill tree here, we have 70% cold resist and we have 64% to all other elements. So if I were to take out 250 armor and put 5% resist to all elements, I would have pretty much maxed out all resistances. So that is an option that you can do. It's not too shabby. Other than that, I think that pretty much covers the entire build. Definitely went a little bit overboard with it with the boss kill in the front, but I hope that was in depth enough. I had a lot of fun with this. It was an absolute blast, and it's great for leveling as well, so long as you have variations of being able to restore your mana. Some of them are actually in Codex of Powers, so you can use that to get a good starter build going. Other than that, that's ShellShock Sorcerer. I'll see you guys in the next one. It's going to be Minion Necromancer that I'm interested in. You guys take care, and I'll see you in the next one. My name is Bflattened. I'm signing on out of here. Take care, all. Laters.